Good morning, school. Easter Monday, 1957. A heavy gloom settled over Doncaster as crowds gathered for the half marathon ending in Sheffield. The starting area was swarming with race stewards, many carrying a photo of the man they had been instructed to stop at all costs. To the officials, he was a gatecrasher, a scoundrel who must be prevented from racing. To almost everybody else, he was a downtrodden champion battling injustice. Runners now pressed forward as the start time neared. The local mayor raised his arm to the clouds, and with a crack of his starting pistol, the race was underway. Seconds later, another sound ripped through the air. A spectator huddled beneath a long coat and a large hat had thrown his disguise clear, revealing his racing attire as he jumped, numberless, into the race. The spectators thundered their approval, and the stewards flailed as he skipped around them to join the runners disappearing down the road. John Tarrant's sporting career fused triumph and tragedy. One of Britain's finest long-distance athletes of the late 50s and 60s, he ran multiple world records, but was denied his full share of glory by the stubborn authorities who banned him from racing. Tarrant wouldn't let them stop him. He was a dogged and brilliant competitor, a numberless outlaw. They called him the Ghost Runner. John Tarrant was born in London in 1930. His early years were marked by poverty, but also by warmth and the fierce love of his family. And for a time, life moved as childhood should. But that would soon change. By 1940, Britain was at war. With his father called to serve in the London's anti-aircraft defences and his mother gravely ill, John was sent to a children's home in Kent. He would remain there for the next 7 years. It was a harsh place, made harsher still by the trauma of the Blitz. Then came another blow. 2 years into his stay there, his mother Edna died of tuberculosis. It wasn't until August 1947 that his father returned to bring him home. The family moved north to the Derbyshire town of Buxton on the rugged edge of the Peak District. It was there, in that brutal and beautiful terrain, that John discovered something that would change the course of his life. He began to run. To help bring money to his family, in 1949, at just 17, Tarrant took up boxing. He entered Buxton's first ever fight night and went on to compete 7 more times over 2 years. He earned £17 in total, roughly £400 today. He wasn't a natural, and by 1951 he left the ring behind. What he didn't know was that this brief, unremarkable stint as a paid boxer would haunt him for the rest of his athletic life. In 1953, with the weekly mileage climbing quickly, he'd set his sights on the Olympics, but first he needed to join a running club. In 1950s Britain, athletics was governed not only by rules but by ideals. Inspired, supposedly, by the noble spirit of ancient Greece, amateur sport was held up as a moral standard, but behind the lofty rhetoric lay a system built on exclusion. Athletes who had ever accepted payment, no matter how little, were banned for life. It was a rule that disproportionately punished the working class, just as Britain struggled to rebuild after the war. Most athletes concealed their earnings, but John Tarrant didn't. When applying to join the Amateur Athletic Association, he admitted to having boxed for money, just £17 over 2 years. Days later, a letter arrived. His subscription was returned. He was banned from amateur athletics for life. No national championships, no Olympic trials, no second chances. He wrote letter after letter pleading his case, but the response was always the same: silence or rejection. So John devised a new plan. If he couldn't run officially, he'd run unofficially. He began to gate crash races, unregistered, uninvited. In Liverpool on the 11th of August 1956, after quietly changing in the crowd, he slipped to the start line, the only runner without a number. Tarrant kept pace with the leaders. At mile 11 he surged ahead, but by mile 19 the pace took its toll. Crippled by exhaustion, He collapsed just 2 miles from the finish. It didn't matter. His performance made headlines, and with them a nickname was born, the Ghost Runner. In race after race, Tarrant appeared out of nowhere, outrunning stewards and storming through the field. When he won, there was no fanfare, just silence. But to the people, he was a hero, a defiant figure, a working-class symbol of grit and rebellion. Then in 1958, a breakthrough. A letter from the Athletics Association. His ban was lifted. No explanation given. But the victory was bittersweet. Tarrant was cleared to run in Britain, but still banned from international competition. His Olympic dream was crushed. Still, he made his mark. Through the 1960s, Tarrant dominated Britain's long-distance scene. He won the London to Brighton race, 3 Liverpool to Blackpool runs, 5 Exeter to Plymouth. He broke records at 40 and 100 miles and marched 110 miles in record time with the Territorial Army. But with triumph came struggle. Stomach issues plagued his career. Some days he flew, others he collapsed, racked with pain. Then came his final test. October the 23rd, 1971, the Radox 100-mile track race in West London. By mile 60, he was fading, walking, barely upright. The leader, Ron Bentley, was 17 minutes ahead, but Tarrant kept going. The gap narrowed, 2 laps, then 1. In the end, Bentley held on. Tarrant finished second. He collapsed at the finish. The Ghost Runner had vanished, and Tarrant never raced seriously again. 2 years later, the cause of his suffering was finally named: stomach cancer. He died in January 1975 at the age of 42. In Hereford, where he made his home, a sculpture now stands in his honour, crafted by teenagers living in care, a tribute shaped by those who, like him, knew what it meant to fight for place and purpose. True greatness lies not in medals or recognition, but in the courage to challenge injustice and persist in the face of exclusion. John Tarrant's life reminds us that the fight for fairness often begins with a single defiant step, and that even when the system says you don't belong, you can still leave a legacy that outpaces silence. You can read more about John Tarrant in the biography by Bill Jones. Thank you for listening.